Hello, it's Martin again, and I wanted to talk in this video, following on from the other videos that I've been doing, about why retirement is different when you have worked for yourself all your life. And I think generally it's different because you don't necessarily make a plan for your retirement as opposed to when you work for somebody. I think when you work for somebody, there's always like I don't know, like you know you're going to be retiring at a certain age. And I'm not saying when you're self-employed you don't actually think about retiring, you do. But I think it's different in several aspects. And one is definitely that. The other thing is, well, I think a lot of it depends on how you feel. Um, when you're working as a self-employed person, depending on what trade you're in, I think you think to yourself, what can I say? You know, it there comes a point in your life where I think you make a decision based on different factors. One is your physical capability of doing the job, which we've talked about in videos. The other one is your financial situation, which we haven't really touched on particularly. And the third one, I think, is how you feel about the possibility of retiring when you've been self-employed, because there's no doubt that being self-employed, there's an air, there's an element of freedom involved in what we're doing. We tend to pick and choose within reason um, when we can do the work, when we come home, and when we go to work. And so we don't have a specific time period, if you like, that we stick to. Although I know we tend to go off in the morning, don't get me wrong, and we do our work and we come home, but there's no specific time. And so I think retiring, because of the freedom that we have, I think there's always that element that we would probably work longer, based on the fact that we do class it as work, but we don't class it as mundane. Um, and therefore, I think we can have that feeling of, that we can keep going. Um, and we don't have to be specific in the time that we think we're going to retire. And of course, there are other situations involved in that. I mean, obviously, if you're a single person, that's your choice, and you don't have to consider it with anybody else. Obviously, if you have a wife or a partner, um, you may have plans to retire. At a certain age, because maybe you too want to go off and do things. Um, and so there's that factor involved in it as well. But also there's the other thing as well, I think, is that because we're self-employed and because we do a job where it's up to us how much we do and how much we don't do, I think retirement tends to be more like semi-retirement, or slowing down, which we talked about in the videos before, about the facts of why we slow down and how we can cope with the slowing down. I think that also has a bearing in why it is different to thinking about retirement when you're self-employed, because you can literally cut right back and be part-time in the same job that you've been doing for many, many years. Like me, for instance, I've been doing my job for 40 years plus. Um, and I can then say, well, I can actually cut back down my hours, but not necessarily fully retire. Um, so it's just, yeah, I just think it's different for a person who's self-employed and who has their own business to consider retirement as opposed to companies. Because also if we go to the financial side, we have to think about what have we got at the end of the retirement in order to retire anyway financially, to be more secure. So that is a big factor as well. And I'd probably like to talk about that a little bit more. But it's not necessarily for people of our age, because we've already been through it. We've got to this stage. If you're a youngster, I would definitely be more prone to giving advice on those things. But yeah, so it's just interesting on why it's different to retire when you've been self-employed. And I must admit, I would love to have some of your comments and let me know what you think about you. I mean, where do you sit in this? Where would you like to be in terms of retiring, or how do you feel about retiring when you're self-employed? Please do send me some comments, let me know, because I'd love to hear them. It's fascinating to hear what other people think about when they're self-employed as a tradesman or a business, about the possibility of retiring. So thanks once again for listening to my video, and I'll be doing another one next week. Thanks very much. Bye for now.